What is going on, all you awesome superhero aficionados? This is the Heroes and Mutants podcast. I'm Nick with my co-hosts Jimmy, Eric, and Ruben. The gang's all here. Brought to you by Higher Passion Entertainment. This is your number one source of all things superheroes and superhero talk. Make sure you guys are following us on IG at Heroes and Mutants podcast. Make sure you guys are subscribing to us, like, share with your friends. And with all that being said, let's get started today. Before we actually get into it, I wanted to make sure you guys are aware. It was actually something that I didn't know about until I had seen it when I was at work later on in the day, and that was on February 8th was actually Bill Finger's birthday. Turned 108 years old. Obviously, if you guys don't know who Bill Finger is, he is a legend and really was one of the co-creators of Batman, and even Bob Kane had said he was actually responsible for 50 to 75% of the creativity in Batman. He was a writer, came up with things
80.
like the name. I'm sorry?
80. Or like 80%, I would say.
Yeah, I know.
Sure.
It's actually funny because when I posted that on IG, one of the hashtags I came up with Bill Finger was Bill Finger created Batman. So I was like, okay, cool. That's a thing. But, came up with things like the name Gotham City. He actually came up with the name Bruce Wayne. And he, even with the Gotham Rogues Gallery, he came up with probably had contributions to characters like Catwoman, the Joker, Penguin, Two-Face, Poison Ivy. So if you guys have seen the documentary on Hulu, Batman and Bill, it documents this whole thing, and it took him 76 years for him to finally get a co-creator credit, beginning, I think, with Gotham that season in 2015, whatever that was. So happy birthday, Bill Finger. Rest in peace, and thank you for all your contributions to this character that we know and love. So with all that being said, let's get started with today. Some casting updates have been floating around recently. One of the biggest ones that came up is Russell Crowe joins the cast of the Kraven movie. His role is unknown, but many of the main roles are said to be Kraven's family. So I think this is actually an interesting thing because he would have. I actually thought 10 years ago he would have made a great Kraven, and this is actually a good thing because. Well, not so much now, of course, but 10 years ago, he would have made a great Kraven. I almost said Raven, but I think this film is actually starting to really pique my interest because obviously Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven is a great actor. Russell Crowe is another one of those high quality actors. Are you guys with the Sonyverse? I know some people kind of are mixed on it. Do you guys feel like getting these kind of actors is starting to pique your curiosity a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it shows with that caliber actor that they're trying to take it a little more seriously. I could see him more in a family member role. Like you said, 10, 15 years ago, I would have said, yeah, Kurt Russell's not a bad choice. But now, no.
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe. Why did I say Kurt Russell? Why did I say Kurt Russell? I apologize. Russell Crowe. 10, 15 years ago, Russell
Some old white guy, right?
They're both good actors, though. But yeah, I could have pictured, Gladiator, Russell Crowe. I could have pictured him 10, 15 years ago, but now just family. We'll see how it goes. I mean, just because Sony has messed up with a lot of stuff doesn't mean that they can't make a good movie. It doesn't mean that they're incapable. I mean, we all forget that the Spider-Man movies are Sony too, and the Spider-Verse animated film was I love Into the Spider-Verse, so I have high hopes for this one.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting casting just because it looks like Sony's kind of looking into this formula of putting well-known actors into these roles. Like we had Tom Hardy as Venom, but that hasn't been that good. But now we're getting Morbius, right, with Jared Leto. And in my opinion, Jared Leto is a great actor, right? So I think they're really trying to get away from this comic booky type of films. And I think with, what's his name, Aaron Taylor Johnson at the helm of this film. I mean, he's also a really good actor. I think he's going to do really well. Mm-hmm. And I wonder what story they're going to tell for Kraven. Is it going to be what's it called? Kraven's Last Hunt? That's one of the more popular ones, right?
Yeah.
I imagine they would have to wait to do that one.
Yeah, build up to it.
Yeah,
they're going to have to.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of movies being put in place just to build up, right? Because they might build up to something and it sucks and we just never get it, right? I think it'd be cool if you see almost like Kraven's Last Hunt, and you see like flashbacks to his origin and like who he was, or even I know this probably won't happen, but there's a really good story arc with Kraven and Black Panther that goes really well with MCU. But even then, like I don't want them to hold back just in the hopes of getting a sequel or building out, because I feel like right now the Sony verse, other than the Spider-Man movies, it's not looking too hot, especially with Venom 2 and how bad that was. And initial reactions on Morbius are mixed right now, right? Like it hasn't really come out yet, but just the initial audience, there's been reshoots already. So I'm just kind of iffy about all that. So we'll see.
Exactly.
I think you actually have a good point. It's better just to come out swinging and make the film that you wanted to make, instead of not impressing people and then not getting greenlit and then we never get it. So I kind of see your point there.
Well, I feel like Spider-Man had a lot to do with reshoots. Like Doctor Strange is having a lot of reshoots right now.
Yeah.
So it's understandable that Morbius is in that same phase too, because I think No Way Home literally opened the doors and for a lot of things to happen. And that's just making all these, writers who wrote the script change up some things, because now it's like, well, damn, I could do this, I could add this, and that's messed around with it just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Kraven's gonna build up to fight against Spider-Man. It's the same with Venom, right?
Well,
we're all waiting for Venom to fight Spider-Man first, right?
Okay, so but I feel like the confusion at this point, are Kraven and Venom going to be fighting Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland now?
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
question.
We don't know.
That's the
We don't know. Because Toby's supposed to come out in Doctor Strange 2, supposedly.
Yeah.
That's the
Apparently
era
everyone's coming out in that
I'm
movie.
not sure which Spider-Man actor is going to be the.
Yeah. If they're just gonna jump around and just have them be like, oh, we're gonna fight Andrew, then we're gonna fight Tom, then we're gonna go to the MCU and fight Tom.
I mean,
which actually wouldn't be too far fetched when you look at the comic books. Like, you had a bunch of different like Spider-Man series going at once. Like you had the Ultimate version, and you had the what was it, Earth 616 version, and so there's a bunch of different versions going at the same time. Like it's happened before.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's too far fetched to think they can do the same thing in the movies.
Exactly.
I mean,
still, this movie seems random. It just seems like, did Kraven really get? Is it something that really warrants a movie? And we wanted to see him fighting off against Spider-Man. Granted, Kraven is an interesting character. It is one of the more complex out of the Spider-Man villains. So I think if you were going to make a film around a character, definitely Kraven would be at the top of the list, because him being that hunter and him not really filling that quota as that villain that we expect or that we're used to see. So I'm excited for this, and another high quality actor. And I think, like Eric had touched upon, it seems like they're aware about, and I don't even think it's so much the acting, but I think at least from Sony's perspective, they at least are thinking about that. We had Woody Harrelson in Venom, in the Venom Let There Be Carnage. You're getting Jared Leto, and then you have Aaron Taylor Johnson. Now you have Russell Crowe. So I think at least from their perspective, we're at least getting those high quality, top notch actors. But we'll see how the script writing and the exact story they're going to tell. I think that more than anything, these actors are going to do their part. They're going to do good, portray these characters to the best of their ability. But what kind of story are we going to be telling? What is the emphasis on Kraven and how it all comes into play? But
one thing to note, though, I think Ruben touched on it when we were talking about the Spider-Man No Way Home movie, that we did see Kraven in the sky when all the people were coming in.
Yep.
Right. So maybe it's the same version. Maybe it's kicking off from that point. Who knows? We'll see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So other casting news: Dakota Johnson has been cast as Madam Web in her own solo film, the first female-led superhero film for Sony. Seems like a random choice. Can you see her as Madam Web?
Oh yeah, totally.
She's a good actress. Except Madam Web is old, isn't she?
Madam Web is old.
Madam Web is old. So, but the thing is, I mean, after they did with Aunt May, I mean, they're not going to be sticking to that. They're going to want to get younger faces for it. Dakota Johnson, I could totally see her. I mean, I know most people are going to associate her with that 50 Shades of Grey crap.
That's where I thought of her from.
No, she's badass. If you watch her in Suspiria, where she's like the queen of like kind of like you call it like the top of the coven, like like for witches. She's badass. She actually could play a character that kind of demands that kind of power and respect. Mostly because I associate her with that role.
Yeah. Although I'm like the token Marvel fan here, I'm not that familiar with Madam Web. Like all I know is she's like, I don't know, she's like at the intersection of all the spider people of the Spider-Verse.
Well, which I'm surprised about because I thought you would have been like, oh, I know all this about Madam Web.
No,
Madam Web. Like,
I don't.
I'm actually surprised that you say that you don't know.
I
That
love
just
how
goes to
you
show
yourself
just how many characters
He's
are
at the
involved in
center
these
of it all.
universes. And
Yeah, so yeah, I'm the token Marvel guy. But yeah, I mean, I other than seeing her appear in like random comics, and she's just kind of almost like if all the spider people were like the X-Men, she's Professor X. Like that's the best way to describe her, right? But so then I have no idea where they're going with this. Like, are they gonna have to bring back Toby, Andrew, and Tom for another movie with her in it? Like, or is that what they're leading to again? Because we have a animated Spider-Verse already, obviously.
Yeah.
But this is gonna be live action, right? Or has that not been said yet?
Yeah, live action.
live action.
Yeah, so if it's live action, then there's a lot of building up to this and a lot of explaining that's gonna need to happen. I can tell you, like I've read some of these comics and I'm still confused about how the Spider-Verse works sometimes. Like,
I mean, they already have well, I forget who it is, but supposedly, I was saying that Miles is already cast. That they're already bringing Miles into the live action some way somehow. So I don't see it. I could see it happening with with Gwen. Spider Gwen. She could be introduced as well in live action, and everyone we're seeing in the animated series right now, shows or movies, I should say. Yeah. They could find a way to get like Peggy Carter in we saw her in What If. She's supposed to come out in Doctor Strange too. So I mean, live action. So I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen.
Exactly.
True. I think it just might start getting confusing at this point with the multiverse and the Spideyverse, and I think what I don't want is it to get so convoluted that people lose interest, and then we start losing some of this like high quality content.
I mean, I could see what you mean. It's faithful to the comics because of the multiverse.
Yeah,
but it does like run the risk of only like appealing to like hardcore comic book fans who understand all the details and nuances of the multiverse. The average person who just enjoys these movies, who enjoys them but don't really delve that deep, could potentially be very confused by what's going on.
Yeah.
But they'd have to collaborate a little bit with Disney to get I would think, just to get some of the elements of the MCU version of Spider-Man in there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think this is a good point to be brought up because I have friends that don't necessarily watch all the shows, right? So like when Shang-Chi came out, they hit me up and like, hey, do I need to watch any shows ahead of this? Or even with Eternals, it's like, hey, is there something I need to watch ahead of this because I need to know what's happening? And for the most part, I'm like, no, like I'll just tell you the little bits and pieces. But I don't think that's going to be the case moving forward. I think, like, especially with like Wanda supposed to come out in Doctor Strange, you probably should have watched WandaVision ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right. And then with Loki also, like, you have what's his name, Kang, at the end of it, and he's supposed to come out in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
So maybe you should watch Loki before watching this. So I get what Disney is doing, like making you watch different content in order to get here. But I can see people like them, like my buddies, get turned off from watching certain things, or just be watching a movie and just be utterly confused as to what's going on.
Yeah.
And I when I watched Spider-Man No Way Home, I had friends who didn't really care for the older Spider-Man movie. Were like, oh, what's going on? Like, who are these villains? Right? Like it's I think it's starting to get there already.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want it to get to a point where the audience feels like they have to do homework.
Most definitely.
To understand the movie. So I get what you mean.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the end credits mess that up as well. For at the end of every show and every movie, their final episode, or at the end of a movie, I think that messes it up a bit too.
Yeah. I think it
we're
works.
In that era now of like shared universes and spanning multiple decades. So while this is very cool and it definitely is as close to live action comics as we're gonna get, that they do run the risk of confusing audiences and have people go, wait, what? How's this? And there's just so many situations where people have had to explain, like, wait, why? Who was that old guy that was in No Way Home? Like, why is there just some random old guy? Like,
yeah, yep.
So, but with all that being said, I do actually am a little bit more giving a little bit more faith in this project. I think Jimmy is somebody who knows film very well and critiques it very well. So I wasn't really too on board with this casting choice, but I'm gonna check out her other stuff because the only thing I knew her from was 50 Shades of Grey. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's a fair
Yeah.
role to judge her off of based off of everything that Jimmy's saying. So
Yeah.
seems like she's very capable and good stuff to come. And that's obviously a major player in the Spider-Man mythos and universe. So good things to come.
Yep.
And lastly, we have one more casting update. So it's been revealed that the In the Heights star Anthony Ramos is set for a key role in Marvel's Ironheart series on Disney+. Ramos's exact role is unknown, but reported to be similar to how Jonathan Majors was introduced as Kang the Conqueror in Loki, where he is expected to not only have a big role in the series, but in future Marvel projects as well. Sounds like it's going to be obviously somebody very important if they're talking about he's going to be around indefinitely for the future. Who do you guys think that could be?
I'm just happy we're getting a Hispanic hero now.
Well, you say that, and I think it alludes to somebody who we know is coming sometime soon.
Yeah. No, well, so me personally, and it might be just because I have kids, but and so my son, he watches a show called Superhero Squad, which is Marvel, Disney, and there's a character that shows up repeatedly on there, and he actually has really good comic books, and it's Reptile.
Oh, okay,
that's
he's
one of the ones people are speculating.
He's supposed to be a major dude come in the MCU moving forward, supposedly.
Yeah, so I think that'd be cool if it's actually him, and like seeing his powers translate to the movies, I think would be really cool. Obviously, in the comic books, he has ties to the Young Avengers, to those newer age groups, even like the Marvel Rising series. Like he has ties to them, like Squirrel Girl and Miss Marvel, especially Miss Marvel, which we're gonna get a show for as well, and Ironheart. So I think it kind of makes sense that they're kind of building this, and so my take is that it would be Reptile, right? And he kind of brings that type of leadership in the comic books. Obviously on the show it's a kids show, so they're just doing whatever, and he's just kind of following along with the rest of the Avengers. But I think it's I hope it's him, because I think it'd be really cool to see him and his like dinosaur inspired powers come out on screen. Right?
Yeah, I think that's the most logical conclusion I drew from, just because of that fact. It seems like they're, with Ironheart and then Miss Marvel, it seems like they're going to be building towards the Young Avengers, at least at some point, like have all these characters around, and they're younger, so there's going to be obviously another team based off of them. The only other one I could see would possibly be Miles, but I hope that's not the case, just because to introduce him in Ironheart, I don't think would be the most logical way for them to introduce that kind of character. And also Reptile, it would make more sense for Reptile because of that connection to Ironheart, and with those, knowing that those characters are probably going to develop into a team at some point. So I think Reptile would probably be the most logical conclusion for me.
I would think so too. I mean, I'm kind of with Eric. I just want to see a Latino superhero. So I'm excited.
I think is it what's his name, Falcon? Suppose like they kind of in Falcon Winter Soldier they alluded to
Torres, right?
Yeah.
He's
supposed to become the new Falcon, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
we're going to be getting that with in DC because obviously we got Blue Beetle coming, and then I'm assuming that this version of Batgirl is probably going to be like half Latina or something, given that the actress is.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So awesome stuff to come. There was a lot of casting updates recently. I think this is all like within the span of like the last week.
And the majority of these shows are coming out in like 2023.
Yeah, man. I think they just make these announcements just to like pique our interest and like start like
speculation.
The whole idea is to start speculating and like, oh, who could this be?
And it's crazy how Eric brought that up, because as a comic collector, bro, any little speculation, bro, it's oh my lord, depending on what comic it is, it'll shoot up prices like crazy, dude.
Oh yeah.
And then everyone just starts swarming in. It's like it's crazy, bro. Any little speculation. They even have a section in Key Collector's app where it's called the spec deck. So it's like letting you know what could happen, and it's pretty cool
Spec
after
deck?
you guys are collectors. Spec deck, yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
like speculation deck, yeah, but it's
Spec
spec
deck is
deck.
a workout
Yeah,
machine.
yeah. Key collectors,
The Peck Deck,
comic,
yeah.
that's a cool one.
But- so that does it for all the casting updates, but there's also some other stuff we got to get into. So this one is actually very cool, very heartwarming, because obviously I love this actor, and his portrayal has been one of the best, not only in MCU, but in all the actors that played comic book characters. So Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil, has been very vocal about continuing in his role for years to come, saying, quote, I hope to be involved in some way. I hope to get to be involved way, way more for many years. I hope it never ends. How cool is it that not only has he been one of the best comic book portrayals, but he seems genuinely passionate about continuing to be Daredevil indefinitely?
I think it definitely has to happen. I mean, it would feel like a cheat with the way that he appears in No Way Home, and then the Kingpin comes out in Hawkeye, and those came out right around the same time.
Exactly.
That's way too intentional for Disney just to be doing that. Like, if they're not actually considering putting a real Daredevil movie out there, then what they're doing is very cruel to fans. But based on that, I really think it's gonna happen, though. Yeah, I totally see it.
Did you know the creators for each didn't know that the other was going to come out?
Mm-hmm.
So the creators for Hawkeye did not know that Daredevil was going to come out in Spider-Man, and vice versa. They didn't know Kingpin was going to come out in Hawkeye.
Was going to come out in Hawkeye. Yeah.
The only people that knew were the like high-level producers like Kevin Feige and stuff.
Like how cool would that have been if like Charlie, because I think Charlie had filmed his role before Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin did.
Yeah.
How cool would it have been to been like, hey man, I'm gonna be in the MCU still, and then I'm like, hey man, I'm gonna be the. Obviously, they probably couldn't because of contractual obligations, but.
I think they want to keep some element of surprise, and they want to like shock the audience, and that's how you build hype for these.
Like
things.
when Andrew Garfield said Emma Stone kept bugging, like, "Hey, tell me, like, hey, are you gonna be in it?" And he would be like, "No, I'm not." And then that when she saw the movie, she's all like, "I hate you" or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Andrew Garfield should get an award just for that. There's like,
dude, he was getting questioned so many times every day for like a whole month, bro.
No, he was making his rounds for Tick Tick Boom, and every interview he had a Spider-Man question.
But
yeah, it's crazy.
Getting back to this, how excited are you to hear this kind of statement from Charlie Cox?
I love it.
Yeah, Daredevil's one of my favorite comic book superheroes, right? Like I got Hulk, and right under it I got Daredevil, and one of my favorite storylines with him is actually the Guardian Devil storyline, and where Daredevil is right now, like right after the third season of Daredevil from Netflix, where the Kingpin is right now, and even where some of the other characters like Spider-Man, Black Widow, some of those characters show up in that storyline. I feel like that's the perfect storyline to do right now, and I would love it if Kevin Smith directed it, because he wrote that story. He wrote the Guardian Devil story, so I think it'd be really cool to see that portrayed on TV or either in a show. I think Daredevil kind of has to be a show, but either on a show or a movie, I think it'd be amazing to see specifically that storyline. But even then, I think they kind of owe it to the fans to really bring him back, especially with how much fans not only speculated that he was going to come back, but really like pushed for it. Like it was all over Twitter all the time. Bring back Daredevil, and I think just giving us a cameo, that's kind of a cop out, right? Like sure, I think there needs to be at least one other project with him.
If Disney can get Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back, there's no reason they cannot get Charlie Cox for Daredevil.
Yeah.
There's no excuse.
Yeah.
Well, I love the news, to be honest. I feel like the way Nick is saying he's pushing forward, he's putting like, hey man, if I get another chance, like, I want it to be long term. And if it's not long term, like, I'm gonna still enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
But he's perfect. He would be fair. Like you guys, Eric and Jimmy just said, it's like they're not gonna just show him and tease us, because that's a hard teaser if they don't, bring him back. I would definitely be disappointed.
Yeah.
But for sure, I love the news. He's enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
And I like that. Unlike Ben Affleck, where he's not really showing a lot of interest, even though those rumors where he's gonna come out in Doctor Strange
he's done though.
too,
He's completely done though.
So he's like,
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw
Ben,
Ben Affleck show up as Daredevil in the new Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Just for fun.
Man, he's
It would
gonna
be
be
cool.
like,
It would
bring
be cool.
J-Lo as Elektra, and I'm in.
be a possibility.
I'm in.
That's funny.
Ridiculous.
But
Just don't give us the original Electra for the movie.
Yeah, don't give us that original one. Yeah.
it's just cool because I feel this is a common thing amongst a lot of these actors who are partaking in these roles now, where they just get super excited and energetic and enthusiastic about portraying these characters to the best of their ability. I don't know if you guys had seen Robert Pattinson said in a recent interview too, said the same thing. There's going to be another actor we're going to talk about later who was passionate about a project that didn't materialize. So for us, who have been fans of these characters for a long time and read the source material, to hear these actors talking about how passionate and enthusiastic they are, and especially with Charlie Cox, because he's pushing 40 and is talking about, I hope it never ends, I want to do this forever. You hear something like that where he knows this role is going to be physically demanding, and he says, I don't want this to end. So this is a really cool thing, and especially because we at least need to see Spider-Man and Daredevil team up together to take down the Kingpin, or just run amok in New York and kicking ass and taking names. That's definitely something at the top of my list. So hopefully
especially now that Spider-Man is ground level again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Makes way more sense.
Also, Daredevil is one of the most underrated of superheroes. And I know that people love Daredevil, but Daredevil is really one of the best. I had a phase in my life where I was reading a lot of Daredevil comics.
Even his powers, is legit crazy. I think it was Kevin Smith in an interview where he was talking about Daredevil, where he said, ideally, Daredevil just jumps off a building, not knowing what he's gonna do. He decides midair where he's going.
I mean, he's the man with the feet for a reason, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, it's crazy. His power is more believable. You know, it's like they say, when you lose one sense, from your six senses, your other ones get enhanced. You know,
it's dialed up to like a million or a million.
Yeah, dude, exactly.
I was trying to be modest, but a million is probably better. But moving on from that, we have a couple first looks. So this first one is going to be our first look at Batgirl's suit. Even though we've only gotten a photo, we have yet to see her in action. Does this give you more hype that it's going in the right direction? What do you hope to see with how this introduces us to Barbara?
Yeah. Well, I've seen a couple of different pictures in the suit, and there's one picture where it looks good and one picture where it looks cheap. and it's obviously the same it's obviously the same suit, so it just makes me wonder. I think I need to see this in motion to actually get a judgment of it. If I could look at one photo and think it's lame and another one think it's cool. I also get the feeling that this is an early suit, and at some point during the movie or during the series, it's going to be it's going to be upgraded.
It's very reminiscent to her current suit right now, though, in the comic books, which is a DIY suit. She made it herself, especially with the jacket look, and then I think she has sneakers on, right? I like it. I actually think it's pretty cool, but I get what you mean, where it looks like it's kind of like an early suit. It's not necessarily well thought out, but that might be the idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, if she manufactured it herself, I think.
Nah, I don't think we went that much into it. But like Jimmy and Eric were saying, I do agree that it might be a little trial suit, because I think the Ms. Marvel, her opening suit, it was okay, but I think they ended up changing it, if I'm not mistaken. They ended up changing her look on her suit from the first photo sets that we saw,
Yeah.
So am I thinking Ms. Marvel? Yeah, I am thinking Ms. Marvel. And I'm assuming it might be the same thing. I'm not complaining about it, but I can't go based off just the suit. I want to see what they're gonna bring to the table with
I mean, could you imagine if we judged Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man off of his wrestling suit, right? We knew that wasn't gonna be it, but a large portion of that movie, that's how he looks.
Exactly. Yeah. But this also just seems like it's going to be a DIY suit. She created it herself and crafted it. I do get what Jimmy says. The main photo that was released to the public. That photo makes the suit look actually really good. There are some other photos I know, depending on the lighting and the texture and how we can actually see the suit, it does affect if it looks good or not. But just given that the fact this is obviously a very intelligent young woman who's not as resourceful, not as rich as somebody obviously like Bruce Wayne, who's not going to have access to high quality materials. So I was not really judging it from that way, and it seems like it's going to be very fitting of Barbara's character. So she's a genius with technology, but obviously in this department, she's not going to be as well prepared. So the fact she's actually manufacturing her suit herself is a good step in the right direction for her character. And I just hope we see that aspect of her character. She's the techie amongst obviously the Bat family. So I think I'm hoping we at least see her love and her being in her natural environment around technology, because obviously that's the mainstay of the character. So as long as they're building up to that, I think this is going to be a very awesome portrayal of Barbara.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I love Barbara Gordon, and it's about time that we got a good live action version of Barbara Gordon.
For sure.
Yeah.
Although it is going to be a little bit confusing because J.K. Simmons is going to be the Commissioner Gordon, but now we know that Michael Keaton is rumored to be the Batman appearing in the film.
Michael Keaton's the Batman and J.K. Simmons, but that's why I'm telling you that Flash movie is going to open up the multiverse. It's it's not going to erase the Snyderverse. It's just going to make it one big clusterfuck.
Yeah, it makes it better, I guess.
Yeah.
So moving on from that, we had a first look at one of the shows I'm looking forward to the most, and it's gonna set the tone for what the MCU is how far they're gonna be willing to go with these shows and their content. But we have our first look at Moon Knight. It seems very fitting for the character. Do you think we'll see Netflix Marvel kind of violence, or is it gonna be toned down?
It has to be toned down.
Definitely.
I mean, it's not going to be Netflix Marvel kind of violence, but I can picture some moments like in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the shield.
Oh yeah,
that was pretty brutal.
Oh, when they broke Walker's arm, that was actually pretty brutal. I think they had it this way, and then he went forward with his jetpack and snapped his arm. I was like, oh, damn.
I feel like it's gonna be like you guys are saying, brutal, but not deadly. I guess.
I mean, PG-13 can go pretty far, right?
Yeah.
And that's they won't go past that on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to have R-rated level violence in order for this to be good. I don't think that's necessary. I think PG-13 violence is good enough.
Yeah, because and then we know if they were gonna go to that extent, it'd probably have to come out on Hulu. Like they had Hitmonkey on there, right? I'm still going through that, but I mean, first couple scenes is just blood everywhere and people getting their arms cut off, but which would be cool to see Moon Knight do. But who knows? Maybe we can get some spinoff, or he'll come out in something else on Hulu. But as of now, I think you can have enough violence to kind of portray how violent Moon Knight can actually get.
Exactly.
Do you know that in Disney Plus, in other countries and places besides the U.S., they have MODOK on there, more violent, and they have a separate hub that you need a parental, some kind of parental code to unlock it. But there are other countries where you can get that content on Disney Plus. It's just hidden from the kids.
Yep.
Interesting.
I knew that.
I'm just hoping that it's probably not going to be as the level of something like The Punisher. I could see maybe a little bit of a toned down Daredevil from Netflix. So maybe something that's just a little bit off from there. But just given that this character is extremely violent, is an anti-hero, I think that's going to be very fitting. And as long as they portray just that aspect of the character, obviously we know it's going to be diving into his DID, his dissociative identity disorder. It's obviously Oscar Isaac fits this character very well. I think it's going to be good from that standpoint. I don't really think we're going to have to worry about something to where they're going to tone it down extremely. If they're allowed to have, S words, I think, was there an F-bomb somewhere in Disney Plus? Was there? I know that they've said the S word a couple times.
I don't think an F word yet.
Have they not said it? Anyways, I just know that at least we're not going to tone it down that much. It's not going to be as bloody, but I think it's going to be very fitting for a character like Moon Knight. So can't wait till we get there. It's going to be at the end of March that arrives. I can't wait for it. moving on, we actually had a little bit of a funny take. So highly acclaimed director Steven Soderbergh, who directed Ocean's 11, criticizes superhero movies for shying away from sex, saying, quote, "Nobody's effing." Like, I don't know how to tell people how to behave in a world in which that is not a thing. The fantasy spectacular universe, as far as I can tell, typically doesn't involve a lot of effing. A huge part of this is that most superhero films nowadays are appealing to younger demographics to make it more family inclusive and obviously to drive up that box office as high as it possibly can. Do you agree with this take? Should superhero films include the characters engaging in sex and intimacy in a more overt way?
Okay, I'm gonna read to you James Gunn's response. He said,
Oh, I didn't know he responded.
He responded.
He's ready.
"Yeah, with all due respect, Steven Soderbergh, some people are effing." And then he shares a bunch of like pictures from like superhero content where people are. He said, "Me and Zack Snyder and Richard Donner and Chloe Zhao and Tim Miller off the top of my head. But to Soderbergh's credit, sex seems to be non-existent in many comic book films, so it's not like his statement is groundless. He says, "It isn't necessary in any single story, but to have an entire antiseptic sexless film universe is a denial of who we are as human beings and how every single one of us got here."
Yeah.
I kind of get what he's saying, but I think that mostly when you stop and like really analyze it, I think it applies a little bit more to the MCU than it does to a lot of other aspects of superheroes. I don't think like the Sam Raimi movies are zapped of sexuality. I don't think that it's obviously showing sex, but I don't think those characters are not having sex or anything like that.
Yeah,
I
dude.
can kind of see where he comes from the point, but I think
we know Quinn and Gamora are,
yeah, but I think it's mostly in terms of the MCU being like that because it's Disney. And I would say that that's kind of a thing for more of a lot of modern blockbusters, like a lot of modern blockbusters, period. If you look at like blockbuster films from the 70s and 80s, there's more overt references to sexuality, even in movies that are designed for kids. I think it mostly applies to the MCU.
Man, I don't even think it applies to the MCU. I mean, he mentioned Chloe Zhao. Literally in the Eternals, we had a partial sex scene. But I mean, in the early Iron Man movies, Tony Stark was sleeping with women all the time. It just didn't show sex scenes.
It was
implied.
Exactly, implied reference in some sort of way. Yeah. So I was like, see, this goes back to when we spoke about Matt Damon, where he had some sort of input about superhero movies as well, saying like it's all fake, it's all imagination. It's not real content. It makes it harder for people that are trying to make nonfiction movies, real life. But I was like, bro, you're just being a little hater, like I said back then. In a way, I understand what this dude is saying right now in this moment in time. Like, it's understandable, but it's kind of like that common sense kind of thing. It's like, bro, whoever's dating within each other as superheroes, we know behind closed doors. We assume we know. Yeah. How do you think they're having babies? How do you think we got a little Superman, little Batman? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Shang-Chi and his sister.
Like it's like, it's like, bro, how do you think these? We do not need to see no sex scenes. Like, what about like even for another example, I brought up Quinn and Gamora in same Guardians of the Galaxy when she's over here touching on Thor. Gamora's touching on Thor's muscles. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think she's implying? She's into him like that. So it's like we already know she got turned on a little bit. So it's like.
Yeah, I think,
and it's put out there, reference some way somehow. Okay.
Yeah, I think sex scenes are almost like overdone now. Sometimes, like I'll watch certain movies or shows, I'm like, that was totally unnecessary. Like Game of Thrones, honestly, I would just skip through the sex scenes because it was just pointless. It's just dumb.
Bro, I do that with movies too. So I was like,
it's like I don't need to see that. The fact that it's implied is fine. Like, sure, there's gonna be some movies where the sex scene is vital to the plot, but to just throw in a sex scene just to throw it in, like I mean, we're talking about superhero shows, Bad Boys, like they had a couple like hardcore sex scenes there, and honestly, in 302, like I was just like, that wasn't necessary. Okay, let's move on.
But I don't think he necessarily means just showing a sex scene. It's like sexuality, because like the
In-
original Superman, there's no sex scenes in the Superman movies,
That's true.
but there's a lot more implied sexuality
yeah.
than there
But
is.
like seeing Frank
in
Miller's 300,
Yeah,
they showed
like-
the perfect sex scenes where it needed to
Yeah.
apply in the story.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That makes
It's
sense.
like if you don't have no freaking reason to
Mhm.
put it, you don't need to put it.
Yeah, you don't need to put it, but I understand to an extent, because if you compare it to something like Superman, there's a lot more implied sexuality in Superman than there is in the majority of MCU movies, barring a couple of examples. And it's the same thing like Batman Returns. That movie is dripping in
Oh yeah. I
sexuality.
mean, Catwoman alone. I mean,
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I think it really depends on what you're seeing, right? Because
Yeah.
you're not gonna tell me that Black Widow coming on the MCU early wasn't dripping in sexuality. Like that was literally like so many like geeks' dreams, right? Like
Yeah.
coming true
Yeah.
on screen.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mentioned Tony Stark. You start mentioning Captain America, and they have actual conversations about that. Why isn't he dating? And they're trying to push him in certain directions. Same with Bruce Banner and Black Widow again. Like I think
Yep,
it's
true.
a lot of that stuff is there. I think it's just not to the extent that maybe he wanted to see it.
I
Right,
guess
'cause-
because Steven Soderbergh makes it specific types of movies that are. I mean, one of his movies is called Sex, Lies, and Videotape, where it's
Yes,
kind of
yeah.
more important for him.
Yeah.
So I get what he means, but I don't think it's entirely absent, and I think it depends on the context and what kind of superhero movie you're going for. Obviously,
Exactly,
something
yeah.
like Shazam. I
He's a
don't.
kid, right?
Yeah, like that would be stupid. But
Yeah.
I
Or
mean,
even like Spider-Man, right? They're in
But,
high school. It's gonna
you
be a
know,
high school type of love,
It
right?
just came to my head right now. Even Flash, bro, as cheesy as it is, they imply,
Yeah.
Barry and
Oh, they do a
Iris,
lot.
Yeah.
Barry and Iris,
Mhm.
having, sexual intercourse or
Yeah,
something like that,
'cause there is a lot of moments across a lot of super films, specifically MCU too, that where you see a lot of references to intimacy, or you see things to where you can put two and two together and say, okay, these two are being intimate with each other, or they're engaging in some kind of affection. Overtly, you know that they're probably doing stuff behind closed doors. So I think he just means more overtly. Like he's not saying nobody's doing it, but as far as like showing it. But obviously, when you have something
don't,
like
yeah.
Watchmen and that scene
Yeah.
just goes on for so damn long, and you're like, why are we even watching this? Why is this even here? To Hallelujah of all things too. I'm like, so did Soderbergh not see that?
I mean,
Or does that not fit the criteria of like a modern superhero film? So
one thing I do know is that the Batman, it's one of the things it's rated PG-13 for is nudity and mild sexuality.
Hey, and not only that, if they are gonna show it, I want to see them do it with their superpowers. Like Superman, I want to see that in the sky. Batman, I don't know, somewhere. Batman somewhere in a dark ass cave with knife. I don't know, something.
So you like those scenes from Bad
imagination.
Boys?
Huh?
You like those scenes from Bad Boys then?
Oh yeah, I forgot
They're breaking
man,
everything.
I'm just saying, if they're gonna really, let's have this fool make a freaking movie and see what he brings to the table.
Yeah.
Why? How about that? Let's speak about that. Let him
Yeah.
bring his pitch idea to Sony, Disney, DC, someone. I want to see.
At the same time, I don't think if your motivation to make a superhero movie is to film sex scenes, I don't know if you should be making a superhero
exactly.
movie.
Fair.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because those are the kind of, this would not be the genre that Soderbergh would do regardless. I mean, you could watch a film from him and say, this guy would probably not want to do a superhero film, or if he would, it would be more of an auteur kind. It would be a different kind of brand, or it would be a different kind of genre for him. I think for me, though, the thing I think he does kind of touch upon is that when you look at like the early MCU films, you even think of like Iron Man, heck, even like the Hulk, it had him almost engaging in a moment, but obviously he couldn't because he can't get any.
He even brings up like, I
excited.
can't even have kids.
Yeah. But I think it's just more they're part. I think it's because more they're part of that brand now that they shy away from it, or they're not. Especially like when you go to something like the first Superman movie, where that's something I remember Jimmy touched upon when we talked about the legacy of that first Superman film. I think way back after when Richard Donner had died. And that was one of the things that really resonated with me, where it said, this was you could definitely sense that this was an era where these characters were very, very attracted to you, and they didn't shy away from that, and they were more overt about it. I think that's something to where they're not too overt about it right now. So I do think that's a point of contention.
I think movies could use a little bit more touch of it, and I think it's mostly because Disney has kind of, because like the examples like Iron Man, they do show a lot of that, and then the most recently Eternals, but mostly in the middle, I don't think like it has the same level of flirtation. Like the Superman movie is not in any way pornographic or sexual.
No, not at all.
At all. But I just think the conversations between like Lois and Superman, where she's interviewing him, it's very obvious that she's interested in him
and him too.
Level,
and him too.
But it never comes across dirty
or
like something like inappropriate for kids. So I think it's okay, but I don't know if like full-on sex scenes are necessary for a superhero movie. But I guess we could use a little bit more, I guess, flirtatious elements that suggest it a little more.
But to be like, oh, nobody's effing, I'm like, well,
that's not
really, if it's really that important to the story, sure. But, because somebody like Bruce Wayne, Iron Man, and Tony Stark in their civilian identities, filling that playboy persona, then sure. But somebody like Bruce Banner probably wouldn't just be overtly effing around all the time. So I think that's something I definitely agree with you on more, where I think we could see a little bit more of that flirtatiousness from the characters. And that's something I'm really looking forward to in the Batman, because I know Zoe Kravitz, who plays Catwoman, had said Batman represents masculinity, Catwoman represents femininity. So obviously we're going to be seeing a lot of that. We saw a lot of that in that trailer, The Bat and the Cat. So I think that's going to be taking us back to those moments. And
I think it makes sense when it's important for the character story or the character arc, like in Tony Stark's case, like the idea that he was a playboy billionaire. It's important, and a lot of that happens
in real life too.
Yeah, right. And then when it comes to Batman and Catwoman, like you just brought this up, is like you see it in the animated series even, right? Where you'll see Batman is like being himself, stoic, and Catwoman is all over him all the time. So I think to that extent, it's important to their characters to show that sexuality for them. But I think just throwing it in there just because we want it in there and it's not really part of the plot or advancing the story in any way is kind of lazy. It's weird.
Exactly.
Yeah, but not only that, just even from the trailer with the Batman scene where Zoe just jumps off the roof and says, "I got 9 lives," or "I got 8 more lives, man," or something like, "I got 9 lives left." Oh, bro, that's just that scene alone. Those 3 seconds.
There's good trailers.
It was hot. I was like, I like her. Man, I'm excited for that.
I will say it, for characters like Batman and Catwoman, the way that their relationship is in the comics and the cartoons, I think you need to show it more than you would on the average thing, because that's a big defining aspect of their relationship. But it's not for every relationship in superhero comics.
Exactly.
It's like that.
As long as it fits the story and at least fits the characters. And
yeah.
And moving on from that, our last topic before we get into the main one. This is actually something that made me pretty sad and kind of broke my heart, especially because when it was first announced he was cast as this character way back in 2014, I was sharpening my pitchfork and ready to cause a riot. So Channing Tatum recently reveals that after the Gambit film was canceled after the Disney-Fox merger, he was, quote, traumatized and promised he'd never watch any more Marvel films. Further saying, quote, "I love that character. It was just so sad. It was like losing a friend because I was so ready to play him." You really feel how hurt he was and really was excited about playing Gambit. And this was one of those things I'd said when we were talking about Charlie Cox's Daredevil, where a lot of these actors nowadays are becoming way more passionate, enthusiastic, and ready to play these characters. And this is clearly one of those examples too. And the thing that sucks is that he never got that chance that I think he deserved. What do you guys think, though? Is there some small kind of hope it could be revived with the MCU, or would you guys even want to see it?
I feel like he definitely. I don't know about him necessarily, but I know Gambit for sure. With mutants supposed to be in coming into the MCU, I feel like he could definitely have a chance, but I don't necessarily feel like it would be him. I feel him how he was heartbroken because, like I said, Nick, he was supposed to come out in that film. They even had a release date. It was supposed to come out before all these other MCU movies, if I'm not mistaken. And so, but the thing that happened, it was that merger. Disney bought off Fox. So it's understandable where they just, scrapped it. They said, you know what, we're cutting it off because they had better other plans for it. But like, bro, I felt like I was excited for it. I wanted it to happen too. Freaking Gambit, one of my favorite mutants for sure. Ah, man.
I just think it's funny how they had that whole like marketing ahead of time. They even took a picture with all the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, and he was just in there, just randomly. Like they're already prepared for him to be Gambit, and they just X'd him out. So that sucks. It sucks for him, but I mean, I think now with the MCU, especially with the multiverse, the door's always open. Like, especially with him, maybe this is just like a tactic from his end. Like, man, I'm so mad I didn't get to play Gambit. Like, wink, wink.
I can see that.
And to be honest,
Sure.
I don't think he's too old to play the character. In fact, he still explained he's
and he's a dancer, so he's like
yeah,
he's flexible. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I still think there's a possibility he could play the character again.
Yeah,
I mean, they always have stunt doubles. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, unless you're Tom Cruise, where he's gonna do his own stunts and get hurt, and then you gotta postpone.
Oh man.
I thought even just a couple years ago that he was too old, and I'm not gonna lie. When it was first announced he was cast, I was not too happy because obviously Gambit is one of my favorite characters from the X-Men, and I just didn't feel he could portray this character. And the thing about this character, he is so difficult to portray just because he's Cajun to his core with his accent, the way he moves.
Very true. Very true.
All his culture, he's so Cajun and so proud of it. So I just felt like he was not able to portray that, but I just felt like maybe I just didn't give him a chance. And then to know that all this time had gone by and he was still expected to play him and he was still on board, and then once this merger happened, it got scrapped. And to hear him, I didn't realize that he was as big of a character and was as excited and ready to play him as he was. So I just really felt for him, and I was like, damn, I'm a dick for, I'm a dick right there. I'm a dick because I just didn't give him a chance and give him any hope. But I do think that, especially nowadays with the way social media works and fans who can drive out that interest and say, hey, we want it, making hashtag Channing Tatum to be Gambit again or something like that. I think where we are at in the day and age to where that is a possibility, and these companies can go and see, hey, this is what the fans want, or this is what can dictate how much money we can make in the box office. Okay, let's bring him back to play Gambit again. I think now is a better time, and like he's not that old. He still actually doesn't really look that old, and still in pretty good shape. That's really all that matters. I think if it has to happen within the next 3 to 4 years, is given that he would be in his mid-40s at that point. But I really think that this is a possibility, and I hope we get to see it just because he's been so happy and grateful that he had this opportunity, but never got to have that come to fruition. So I really hope it happens.
I do like the dude who played it from Wolverine Origins, though.
That was
accent was a little off, but he
did portray it cool though. Yeah, he looked like the character.
Yeah, but we'll see.
What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, he should come back. He deserves it.
He does.
I think he deserves it, especially with how much he's expressed it. And we've seen. I mean, Charlie Cox kind of talked about it the same way, right? When Daredevil was canceled, he's like, I wish one day I could play again, and just giving subtle hints. I think he's doing the same thing here. Him going to the extent of not watching any superhero movie because he got X is kind of it's kind of weird. But
I understand the bitterness. If you're gonna be this character, you were so on board, it was supposed to happen, you were ready to do it, and that just didn't happen. I mean, that could really traumatize you in that way, to kill any hope or enthusiasm you have for watching these kind of movies. Charlie Cox has to come back as Daredevil, but I never got to be Gambit. So I sense that bitterness, and that really makes a lot of sense, honestly.
I don't know if he could pull it off as an actor though. Like
that was my main concern.
Yeah, like last stuff I saw him in was 22 Jump Street. Like, and he's more of a comedic actor, and I get who Gambit is. and he does have like almost like a sarcastic personality, but I don't know. Maybe he was just like so amped for it.
You never saw? Was it Team Foxcatcher with Steve Carell? Did you ever see that?
Yeah, he's good in that.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
He was really good in that.
That's not. You don't picture Gambit from looking at that performance.
Yeah,
it's a good performance, but you don't. Picture, the closest thing I could think of is he had a small part in the Hateful Eight, the Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
True.
I guess that I wouldn't say it's sarcastic, but that's like the only he's villainous. Somebody's a little I don't know, but Gambit's not a villain. I guess that's like the closest.
But his character does come up. He has to, before he kills the people, he has to come up as very charming and very convincing. So I think from that aspect, that is something that's channeling Gambit. But it's just the acting. The accent is very, very specific to this character, and it has to be done well in order to buy in and believe that this is actually Gambit. So I think I would give him a shot, though. If that opportunity came about, just give him a shot. He's deserved it. He waited so long. So hopefully it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that happens. Update you guys with that. But all that being said, we are going to get into the main topic of today. Peacemaker was released at midnight today. Well, today when we filmed this, but episode 7, I think Stop Dragging My Heart is what it was called. Or is it Quit Dragging My Heart? Sorry, guy. I think Quit Dragging My Heart was what it was called.
It's something.
Dragon, like not dragging, but dragon as in like the beast with the wings, dragon. What did you guys think? To me, this one felt like the most emotional so far that we've had. Do you guys agree?
I think so. I really love what the show's doing with the characters. This one had several emotional moments that kind of had me like pretty sad. I think James Gunn has did a good job of setting up all these characters, making you care about them, making you care about their story arcs, their personal journeys, what they have to go through, and kind of understanding all of them as human beings, except maybe Vigilante. That guy is a complete sociopath. But I still like the character, but I'm impressed with the level of like the emotion that is gone into the series, given that it is so comedic and it is so funny and it's so irreverent, and at times it doesn't seem like it takes itself too seriously, but it takes itself seriously enough that you care about everything. I think it's a pretty hard-hitting series. I love this episode.
And even just, you knew that it was going to be emotional from the very beginning, where you see him have a flashback to where he accidentally killed his brother Keith in a fight that was being betted on by his father. And I think that's the thing that sucks so bad. Like, you were forced to fight your brother for money. Tragedy happens, and yet your dad is going to turn around and blame you. Like, what the hell? Like, bro, this was on you.
Yeah.
And even then too, just setting up that scene where they're listening to Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue, them having that awesome brother moment, and him and then picking up in the present where he's crying in the bathroom. Like, you knew that this was gonna have an emotional arc for this whole episode. And man, there was just so many great moments. What do you guys think, Eric, Ruben?
I feel like, bro, it's been one of the best episodes I've seen in a while. You know how I always say I'm more of a Marvel fan and all that stuff? Mm-hmm. Well, this is actually a show where I'm enjoying. It touches everything, where it comes to the action, the comedic, the heartfelt kind of stuff, you know. It touches in all that stuff. So, overall, I think it's probably my favorite show of the year so far. So,
yeah, barely this year barely started, but that's
yeah, I know. But there's Book of Boba Fett, which I just recently started or watched too. Which that's what I was saying. But there's a little bit of it's true. That's how. Hey,
I think this show's
so
good.
Far, that's what I said. So far,
so far it's still early, but I think this show is of such a quality that I don't see it getting knocked too high from that peg. From the rest of the year in television. I think it's really good storytelling.
Yeah, I think
that's a high bar.
It's gonna be one of those shows where it's gonna, like you say, Jimmy. Thank you for saying that. It's gonna be one of those shows that's gonna hang in there. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like with all the new shows coming out, I think it's gonna be one of these shows where it's gonna hang in there with Marvel.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And I think it's James Gunn, dude. It's James Gunn.
It's definitely all James Gunn for sure. And then obviously John Cena, you know, you can't see him throughout the show, but
you just see a floating helmet.
What about you, Eric?
I mean, this show literally is one of the best shows in recent memory. Not even superhero shows, not even best of the year so far. Like, overall. I honestly, as of now, I like the show better than any of the Disney Plus shows I watched last year. Ooh. Like legit, like I had WandaVision at the top last year, and I think it's better than that. I just love what they're doing with the character and how they're like expanding and creating their own world around the different stories that are happening, and they're not afraid to touch on anything, right? Like they're not afraid to touch on aliens, on racism, on sexism. Like it's all over the place, and I love it, and it's still coherent, right? It's a coherent story, and I find myself really like invested in these characters. And like we see, like in this last episode, we see what happens to their leader, and they just have to like put themselves back together and figure it out, right? Like and the way every episode ends with like crazy cliffhangers leading into the next episode, it's insane. And they're just doing a really good job at kind of mastering the format of one episode a week. They're doing that really well, but just really getting people to know and understand the characters even better, especially with like the flashbacks. I feel like I have like a little investment in every single one of those characters now. And some of them that I didn't really care for before, and even like a lot of them that I didn't really care for when Suicide Squad came out, all of a sudden like is like a switch flipped, and I'm really rooting for them. And I was like, dude, they have to do it. But there's also this with how gruesome it is, and how like they're not afraid to show like people getting shot, and like they actually show all the blood and stuff in that. And it's really cool to see that on screen for something like a spin-off of Suicide Squad, right? Because in the comic books they weren't afraid to do that, right? They weren't afraid to show that. So seeing it on TV played out like this, it's been amazing, right? And I'm just here for the ride. It's so good.
I like you said, I'm kind of surprised at how it balances so many things. There's like some serious stuff tackled in here, whether it's racism, white supremacy, sexism, the police force, but like at the same time, it's filled with so much funny stuff, and it goes so out there. It goes from like very ground level issues to alien invasion and bodily possession and so much wild humor, and then to balance it out with like very like in-depth emotion and great story. It seems like they really thought out the story arc for each character in this. Like definitely. I could picture James Gunn ahead of time, like picking each character, and like they're at this point when the series starts, and I want them to be by this at this point when it ends. Like I don't think there's a single supporting character that gets short shrift or they don't really think about, especially when you have a shows or any movies with like team ups or TV shows with like a team and a big cast of characters. There's always like a few or a handful of characters that don't really get the full like the full story arcs that you would get from the lead characters. This time seems like he cares about everyone, and I think it's cool.
I'll say this: it definitely has me excited for Guardians holiday special.
Oh yeah, with him.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, except he's gonna have to be toned down for that.
Yeah, I think I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, it's gonna have to be.
Yeah, I think having him not have that filter, like being able to be on HBO Max, I think it just lets his mind run wild. Oh yeah. And there's certain scenes that just like are so James Gunn and perfect. Like this is from an earlier episode, but when they go into the warehouse and Adebayo tells Peacemaker, is like, all right, be cool, like I'll do the talking, and the girl just starts talking and her head just gets blown off. I was like, that was ridiculous.
Or even like something that made me think about that too was like when they all like look at each other, the camera pans around, they're like, we're in, and then the nurses at the bed were like, hey, we like pump the shotgun, like we're in too. Like,
yep.
That's like so James Gunn. I'm like, oh my god, that is so hilarious.
Yeah. Or just their conversations all the time with Vigilante, right? Is like, all right, I gotta kill them. It's like, wait, do we have to kill them? Yeah.
And he's like,
It just,
make sure we don't use duct tape because that's gonna rip the skin
yeah,
off the
right.
So you're okay with killing you're okay with just killing them, but you don't want to use duct tape because that's gonna hurt them. Like
Yeah, he's like, yeah,
yeah.
of course. Yeah, I think just having characters like that and just being able to not have a filter on them, it just because it's literally things that you think of, like in the scene I mentioned where the person gets their head blown off. Adebayo literally said, like, she just like fuck, like right as I thought it. Like I thought the same exact thing. I was like, what the hell just happened?
Doesn't that happen a lot on the show? Because I had like a similar, like on the part where he wanted to what was I gonna say? When he wanted to duct tape the duct tape the nurses, and they're like, and then he's like so concerned about it hurting them, and I was thinking right then, it's like, wait, you're sensitive about like hurting their skin from duct tape, but you have no problem just blasting them, and then a character,
and then Economos says it.
Yeah, so there are several times where the characters kind of vocalize exactly what I'm thinking while I'm watching the scene.
Yeah. Yep.
They did that on purpose for sure.
Yeah,
they definitely did on purpose.
Yeah.
How is someone gonna react to this? You know, and it's like they probably even before he even like, man, I feel like when he was recording this, he just put someone random, different people each scene, because you know how they do so many takes.
Oh yeah.
I felt like it was one of those things where like, you know what, I'm gonna put someone random, see how they react to this. And I think he did that a couple of times until he found the right one.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, he definitely knows what he's doing. It being rated R just kind of allows him to express freely what he really thinks about those characters and what they're thinking. So without that filter there, I think he's at his best right now.
I think like this show, like with the story arcs, the characters, the creativity, the imagination, the humor, the emotions, it's one of the very best live action DC projects. I think like easily one of the very best live action DC projects, whether it's DCE or anything outside of it, the Christopher Nolan movies, whatever. It to me, it's right at the top.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
The action on this was actually really good too. That fight between Judo Master and Hardcore in the in the hotel room was
that was
top
bad.
Notch. That was top notch. And to see her actually just go head to head, like, all right, let's do this. Like,
yeah. And the filming in that, I mean, Jimmy, you can probably comment more on the film, but I was just like, the angles during that fight scene and everything, I was like, this is really cool, like how they're filming this, like as I'm watching it.
Oh yeah, I think James Gunn really lets you kind of like appreciate like the fight scene like that, and it's like what I don't like with a lot of action movies, and Nick can testify to this too, is that it has this sloppy editing that's supposed to substitute for chaos. But here, you see every hit in that fight scene is so well choreographed, and it's almost like a kind of, I wouldn't say a coming out moment for Hardcore, because you know she's badass, but I didn't know the extent of how skilled of a fighter she was until that moment, and she's like, all right, like it was kind of like, let's take the gloves off kind of moment.
Like made excellent use of the environment too. A lot of fights don't do that, so
I was gonna say that, like in the environment, like as they were fighting through the bathroom, she like pulls the curtains down, and then Judo Master like grabbed her and like slammed her into the wall, and I was like, oh, like that looked painful, and but there, and again, there was no cut in that scene. It just moved into the next room and they're still fighting, and and everything being used around them, and even kind of a callback to an earlier episode when Peacemaker was fighting the woman, one of the first butterflies he fights. Same thing, right? Like great use of the environment, like breaking through walls even, and all that. So I was just like, this is really intense fight sequences, almost like more intense than some of the fight sequences we saw in Suicide Squad. I think it's just really well thought out and just fun to watch, right? Like, definitely. I feel like I'm actually watching like a legit like brawl between like a superhero and a monster, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of what James Gunn did in Suicide Squad, which is awesome. I love the Suicide Squad. It's like he took whatever he did and expanded on it with the series and sharpened it and made it better and added more tension to it and gave it more detail, more shading. Because I really like the Suicide Squad movie, but I really think that this, for me at least anyway, it's safe to say that the show has already surpassed that film. as
Definitely.
creative achievement.
Definitely. So only one more episode left. Make sure you guys are watching for it. We're definitely going to cover it for next week. So with all that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Make sure to follow us on IG at Heroes and Mutants Podcast. Tell your friends about us. Hit that like button, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you guys so much. Take it easy.